Good morning. Today at 11 a.m. will mark 100 years since the end of the First World War. When the paper was signed, it was marked down as the war to end all wars. I wish that I could tell the men and women who died in this conflict that they had not died in vain, that the world had learned from its mistakes. I wish. This summer, I was one of 14 students from across the country selected to study Canada's involvement in the First and Second World Wars. The Beaverbrook Vimy Prize has changed my life. I would like to thank all of you who purchased Vimy pins to ensure that more children like myself can experience this life-changing opportunity. We first landed in London and stayed at a school in which Winston Churchill attended in his teenage years. The girls in the group slept in the dorm he was in, my room right next to his preserved room from his senior year. His name was engraved in many places, including the school's Great Hall. It's interesting how even the most influential of historical figures had a rebellious teenage phase. However, it was not until I was in Belgium that I understood the sacrifices of the war and how many of the citizens today still remember the actions of Canadians. In the small town of Ypres, the citizens remember by having their fire brigade play the last post at the Menin Gate, a monument engraved with the names of countless Commonwealth soldiers who have no known resting place. The town of Ypres has done this every day at 8 o'clock since 1928, with the only exception being during the occupation of Belgium during the Second World War. Then came the cemeteries. Over the course of 2 weeks, I saw more graves than I ever expected to see, upwards of 200,000 places where people have been laid to rest. I felt that by the end I had become desensitized. Anyone who says they can fully understand the tragedy of 60,000 Canadians dying is not true. It's impossible to see each pale headstone as a person, someone with hopes and dreams and a family, because it's hard for us to imagine that each of those stones could have been a brother, a father, a friend, someone that we cared about. When I told people that I was a part of the Beaverbrook Vimy Prize 2018, many of them said that I would find God. I was skeptical. Would not it be easier to lose faith in God when learning of the crimes his sons and daughters had committed against each other? Religion played a large role in the culture of the trenches. There is a popular saying, there are no atheists in trenches. For many, finding God was one of the best ways of coping with the horrific sights of the war. However, some people found nihilism was the best way of coping. Many of them had seen so many people die, with no warning, that they did not wonder if they would die, they wondered when they would die. This decision that death was unpreventable led many to lose faith in God. Religious leaders aiding the Canadian Army, many of them Anglican pastors, were considered to be some of the most respected people in the service. They were considered a positive aspect of a soldier's life, often handing out sweets and reminding them of a better tomorrow. Some commanders even thought that the positive influence of these religious leaders was making their men soft. The day that we went to Vimy Ridge was a monumental day. A segment of the frontline trenches is still preserved. The trenches are very shallow, even my short stature too tall for the trenches to keep my head covered. I also marveled at how small no man's land was, less than 20 feet in some areas. I couldn't imagine how many men died trying to cross that little distance. The monument itself was impactful. Most importantly was the fact that the monument did not gloat about victory, but rather portrayed Mother Canada mourning her lost sons. At Maison Blanche, a series of tunnels in which Canadians hid before the advance for Vimy Ridge, I saw the ways that the soldiers coped. They were in there for days, with barely lit lamps, and in their immense boredom they carved beautiful designs into the soft limestone walls. I wonder if the father who carefully carved his young daughter's face ever got to see her again. When we began to study the Second World War, we attended the annual Raid at Dieppe ceremonies. They are held every year in remembrance for the actions of Canadians, even if not a single Canadian is present. I cannot describe to you the feelings that overcame me when strangers approached our group and thanked us with tears in their eyes for the actions of Canadians. I thanked them for approaching us, but I couldn't help but feeling like I was a fraud. These people who had never stepped on Canadian soil remembered and honored Canadian soldiers better than I ever had. When we went to Juno Beach, the area along Normandy where Canadians landed during D-Day, I was surprised to see that people were swimming in the water. There was a section of the beach that was there for respectful remembrance, and there were other sections, kilometers away, that were a beach, where little kids played and sandcastles were abundant. We were able to go swimming there, and I couldn't help but thinking that they fought for our ability to see this as a beach, an area where teenagers can run around throwing sand and splashing each other. However, it was at the Ardennes Abbey that I felt God. In 1944, 20 Canadian prisoners of war were brutally executed by the 12th SS Panzer Group. The 12th SS Panzer Group would later become the scapegoat for all of Canada's grievances against the Nazi government for this violation of the first two Geneva Conventions. These Canadians had been tortured for information they had refused to give up. Everything about this abbey was written with the blood of innocent men and war crimes, yet the abbey was peaceful. There was a small plaque remembering the names of the soldiers, the site maintained by locals who felt they would always be indebted to Canadians. It was not as grandiose as Vimy, but it was more powerful. As our professor spoke of the events that occurred, a fat tabby cat curled up in a sunbeam near the plaque of the men and fell asleep on its back. I was overcome with emotions at this sight. How could an area that was so peaceful have contained such horrors? But then I remembered the whole point of this day. These men had sacrificed their lives to ensure that peace, and that students from their home country could watch a cat chase a butterfly and doze happily on the land that had once been stained with their blood. It was in that moment that I felt like I found God, and that if those soldiers had been looking down on me, they would have seen the single tear that fell for them, my silent sign of gratitude. In many ways, I believe that it is easier for those who live in Europe to remember the war. Their homes were the battlefield. They have tangible proof of what could have been lost. We Canadians, we never had to block out the noise of artillery. But unfortunately for the men that fought to ensure that, it is harder for us and younger generations to remember them. There's a level of detachment that cannot be breached. That is why I urge you all to find stories of those who fought in the war, family members, friends, and tell them to your children or grandchildren. I have learned throughout all of this that you cannot remember a war if you do not remember the people that served in it. I would like to conclude with a poem. Flanders Fields, although excellent, was not the only poem written as a soldier's way of coping. Titled The Repression of the War Experience by Siegfried Sassoon, this recounts his darkest moments. I believe this poem is one of the closest ways we can get to understanding war and the emotions of a soldier after it finished. Now light the candles, 1, 2, there's them all. What silly beggars are they to blunder in and scorch their wings with glory, liquid flame? No, not that. It's bad to think of war, when thoughts you've gagged all day come back to scare you. And it's been proved that soldiers don't go mad unless they lose control of ugly thoughts that drive them out to jabber among the trees. Now light your pipe. Look, what a steady hand. Draw a deep breath, stop thinking, count 15, you're right as rain. Why won't it rain? I wish there'd be a thunderstorm tonight, with buckets full of water to slice the dark, and make the roses hang their dripping heads. Books, what a jolly company they are, standing so quiet and patient on their shelves, dressed in dim brown and black and white and green and every kind of color. Which will you read? Come on, oh, do read something, they're so wise. I tell you, all the wisdom of the world is waiting for you on those shelves, and yet you sit and gnaw your nails and let your pipe out and listen to the silence on the ceiling. There's one big busy moth that bumps and flutters, and in the breathless air outside the house, the garden waits for something that delays. There must be crowds of ghosts among the trees, not people killed in battle, they're in France, but horrible shapes and shrouds, old men who died slow natural deaths, old men with ugly souls who wore their bodies out with nasty sins. You're quiet and peaceful, summering safe at home. You'd never think there's a bloody war on. Oh yes, you would. Why, you can hear the guns. Hark! Thud, thud, thud. Quiet soft. They never cease. Those whispering guns. Oh Christ, I want to go out and screech at them to stop. I'm going crazy, I'm going stark. Starring mad because of the guns. Thank you.